Welcome to the RFP Success Show with host Lisa Rehurik, the #1 sought-after authority on RFP success. Each week, we bring you information, strategies, or resources to help you win more business through RFPs and have a little fun doing it. Let's get this week's episode started.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RFP Success Show. I am your host, Lisa Rehurik, founder and CEO of the RFP Success Company. And today I am pleased to welcome Dick Eassom, better known as the Wordman. He is a certified fellow of the Association of Proposal Management Professionals, or APMP. You'll probably hear us refer to that a few times on the call. And he's an industry vet. He's been around for a while. He's got over 40 years professional experience with over 25 years experience in the bid proposal creation and management space. He's a writer, presenter, and trainer on bid proposal management topics, specifically using Microsoft Word for proposal publishing, and we are going to talk all things Word today. So, Dick, welcome to the RFP Success Show.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to talk about Word because it's one of those things that a lot of times we just don't know what we don't know. So we're going to dig into some of that. So let's kick this off by just having you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became known as the Wordman.
Well, as you say, I've been around for 40 years or so working. I'm originally from England, as you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
I used to
Love
be a
the
radio.
accent.
Thank you. I used to be a radio communications engineer with a company called Marconi, which some people might have heard of. And like all of us, we're accidental proposal managers, right? So I fell into it in about 1994. And I've actually been living and working in California for about 20 years for a company called SMA. It used to be SM&A, big proposal management company. I started talking about some of the things that I could do with Word because I'm very curious about how can I make Word work better for people in our profession. And fortunately at the time, SMA was very willing to let me play with that, let me run with it. And I ended up doing a presentation, my first presentation for APMP at the annual conference in 2001 in Albuquerque. And then that got some interest from the APMP Professional Journal to write an article for that. But I actually found more freedom with the newsletter, the APMP Perspective. And I ended up writing about 40 articles on that, and I had free rein to write on whatever I wanted. Sometimes it was Word, sometimes it was Excel. It was just kind of fun to write stuff. I had a colleague who was a brilliant graphic artist who actually created Wordman as a sort of superhero in blue spandex. We always joke about that.
I love it. And y'all, if you're listening to this versus watching it on YouTube, he's got right over his right shoulder a picture of that superhero character. So I'm kind of laughing as he's saying that.
Yeah, I put him up specially because I was doing this.
I love it.
Yeah, when it really started though was in New Orleans at the APMP conference in 2003, and somebody had cancelled on the final day, and there was a slot open. I had done a presentation earlier in the conference and had people asking questions afterwards, and we'd run out of time. You have to give the room up for somebody else, right?
Yep.
So the executive director at the time, David Winton, said, well, look, you can have this room if you want to carry on. I'll just let people know you'll be in there to answer questions. And I said, sure, okay. So we started off with a few people, and then a few people became a few tens of people. And then like literally 2 hours later, there's 100 people in there.
Wow.
So there's obviously a need for somebody who can help people with Word. It's what we all use to do proposals. So that's really how Wordman was born, and it became, I guess, a bit of a passion for me to figure out how to do things in Word and figure out some of the more esoteric tools that we could use to actually help us write proposals, help us format proposals, help us make really good-looking proposal documents.
That's really great. It is kind of one of those tools that, you know what you know, and there's so many bells and whistles, and there's so much more you can do with it that I think a lot of times we just don't know what we don't know. So, it can feel pretty straightforward, but at the end of the day, it isn't. So what don't we know that you think we should know about Word?
Well, where does one start?
How many hours do we have, right?
How many hours do we got? Yeah. I can do a whole day workshop on this and we wouldn't be finished. But no, seriously, one of the problems with Word, and the same is true with PowerPoint and to perhaps a lesser degree, Excel. What Microsoft have done very successfully is create tools that are very easy to use out of the box. Okay.
Yep.
You really don't have to be a genius to figure out how to create a Word document. Every student can do it. You can figure out where the bullets are and the bolding and that sort of thing, right?
Yes.
It's really not that hard, but that's the problem. It's deceptively easy. And so I think people get into this thing of not really diving into it. Nobody's sort of, you can just dive in and create a document, right? And you kind of muddle along and you learn some bad habits along the way and it's all good. You don't really know they're bad habits. They're just what you do and everything works out okay. And then we come into the world of proposals or any complex technical documentation kind of infrastructure. In proposal land, unless you're one of those lucky people that just does proposals all by yourself, which is very rarely, most people work in a team environment, right?
Yep.
So, you're working with contributors, subject matter experts, other authors, people are pulling stuff together. And maybe you're the fortunate or unfortunate person at the end of the day who has to pull all of these different things together into a proposal. It could be anything from 100 or more pages, multiple volumes. And so there needs to be some rules once we do this, okay? We need to have templates. We need to have styles. We need to understand how we're going to manage graphics, how we're going to do tables. There needs to be some rules around that.
Can I interrupt you and ask you why? Why do we need to have rules? Like, what's the importance of that?
So the problem is that if we just go along all doing our own thing, when we try and combine everybody's own thing into one thing, sooner or later, something will happen, generally bad, and generally at the end of the day. I don't know of many people who are proposal production people, production professionals, who haven't at some point had a document blow up on them.
Yes.
And we've all been there. Gosh, it's happened to me. It happens. I had one the other day. And it's because that everybody, it's just a joke, everybody and their granny has thrown something into this document, right? It's all come from different places. It's come from other proposal documents, old proposals. It's come out of a PDF. It's come out of a PowerPoint document. It's come off a website, out of an Excel. You name it, it's got in there somehow. Okay? Yep. It's not just what you see on the page. It's what's hidden behind there. Where's the formatting? What's it doing? Is it going to conflict with something else that gets pasted in? And that's generally when the problems happen. So my ethos with proposal to production has been, look, you have that template that defines this is how we're going to do proposals, right? All the proposals are going to use this template. They're all going to look like this. People put their content into that template. It then, in theory, makes it much easier for the production person to pull all that content together into one big cohesive document and do all the tables of contents and all that stuff that production people do at the end that create the finished proposal. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of things that the casual user, the day-to-day user, is not aware of. They could actually do very simple things, actually some settings they could change that would actually help a lot. And it looks like, but that's just causing me to spend more time. Yes, but if your document blows up at the end of the day, what would you rather spend your time doing? Right. So it's an efficiency sort of thing. Any other system, if we were dealing with any other system that was part of a project management system, we'd follow the rules. We'd have sets of procedures and we'd follow the rules. And everybody would go, oh my gosh, that's so burdensome to do that. But I guess if I do it, then everybody's doing it the same way and it'll all be good in the end. But with Word, it's so deceptively easy. People just go, yeah, I don't need to learn that. I can use Word. But they don't realize what's actually happening under the hood, as it were.
Yeah, I love that, actually. I can think of one client in particular that has a lot of kind of senior technical people that are contributing to the document. And then you've got the production people, as you say, that are pulling it all together. And the senior people get so mad when Word crashes or when something happens and they think it's the production person's fault. Mm-hmm. Or there's really weird stuff happening. Not that long ago, we were working on a proposal and there was like this big chunk that wasn't printing. It was on the screen. We could see it on the screen, but when it went to print, it was disappearing. And, whether that's a printer driver issue or a Word issue is neither here nor there. But, it's interesting for anybody listening to this conversation. You need to know that this deceptively easy thing that Dick's talking about is absolutely true. And don't blame it on your production people.
Right. Well, I had a story. I just threw my own story in. So I do some private training and stuff as Wordman, help people out and corporate training and stuff. But I had one particular lady who she got her company to buy my time to train her using Word.
Okay.
And it was great. We did one-on-one sessions and for, an hour a week. And she learned a lot of stuff. She's like mind blown, wow, I didn't know it could do that, or how to do this properly, and how I could never make that work. Now I can, that kind of thing. So all is good. And then she told me a story recently, because we keep in touch, and she said, well, here we are, we're at end game, and they just wanted me to incorporate this, whatever it was, extra thing, appendix or something, into the document.
Okay.
And I said, well, I want to actually, do what my Wordman trainer has told me, which is I'm going to paste that in plain text and then apply my styles and whatever. Oh, no, there's no time for that. Just paste the damn thing in.
Oh.
So she was like, okay, because this is 11th hour, right? Somebody's had a bright idea at the 11th hour.
Right.
So much for proposal planning. Anyway, so she puts this thing in and she's like, oh, please don't break, please don't. And boom, it broke.
Oh.
Because something that was in the content she was pasting in conflicted with something that was already in the document, some style conflict or whatever it might have been. And you're never going to know, by the way, unless you actually do a post-mortem on that, literally. Where's the time? So she then had to, spend time fixing what she shouldn't have had to fix. So again, it comes back to, how would you rather spend your time?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Would you rather spend your time in a sweat, panicking at the 11th hour, trying to figure out what's gone with your Word document? Or should you have just done what common sense says is, no, thank you, I'll bring this in plain text and apply all the styles that I know that I've created that I trust and will work. And I can make it look exactly like that. And you might think that's going to take a little time, but if it blows up, it's actually going to be less time.
Well, and I was going to say, once you know how to do that, it really does not take that much more time.
No, it doesn't. You're absolutely right. My wife was a proposal production professional at SMA for 6 years, and I got to know a lot of the people that she worked with. And I think not one of them wouldn't take the time to, like, say you're doing an integration for a red team. So you're putting all the contributions together, ready for a red team document that can be printed and, put in the room and everybody can go through and bleed all over. And, maybe you're pulling 20, 30 or more documents together. And every single one of them would say, right, I'm going to start with a new document based on my trusted template, bring all that content in, plain text, apply my styles. I know, therefore, it's going to be completely pristine.
Yep.
And they all do that, because the risk is that if you don't, it'll go wrong and you'll be working overnight, and nobody wants to do that.
And it always goes wrong at the wrong time.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, every printer will run out of toner on the sort of the penultimate page,
Yeah.
It's that kind of Murphy's Law, I think, applies in spades here, that what can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible moment.
That's so funny. We have had, of course, anybody listening has had those nightmares. So this might answer this question, but maybe you've got another one. But what is the biggest mistake you see people making when it comes to Word? Is it that they don't kind of set it up right in the front end, or is there other mistakes that you see people making?
I think it goes back to this deceptive ease problem. And people start using it, and I'm not criticizing, but I've heard of this argument from a lot of production people. They don't have time to sit and play with Word. Okay. And I use that word because that's the word I've been told. Play with Word. Yep. You're not playing with Word, you're learning the tool, right? So, take the time, go through the ribbons. I mean, good grief, I've got Word open here, and there are 10, 11 ribbon tabs. And each one of those has God knows how many functions on it. And some of those launch dialogues that have God knows more functions on. There's probably hundreds of things in Word. And then you go into the file options menu and the options dialog, and there's probably hundreds of settings in there that aren't default that you can go and change. What does that do? What is this going to help? So take the time, go in, find some time and just spend your time and look through everything and see what's in there. Back in 2015, I think, APMP started doing this thing at the Bid and Proposal Con, the annual conference. They started doing this Ignite idea. And, most people know the idea of Ignite. It's 20 slides in 5 minutes,
Yes.
right? And you've got 15 seconds a slide and the thing turns automatically. And I was asked if I would do one of these. And I said, sure, yeah, absolutely. Of course I'd do one. And then I heard nothing more. And I thought, maybe it didn't happen until the day before. And the CEO of APMP, Rick Harris, said to me, oh, you got your Ignite presentation ready, right? And I went, okay, yeah, sure. So I quickly put one together that night. And I thought, what am I going to do it on? What am I going to do it on? And as Wordman, it was kind of obvious because it was the title I came up with was use the tool, don't fight the tool. If you're a craftsman, then you've got some particular tool that you know how to use. Let's go back into the days when things were made by hand, right?
Yep.
So somebody might be a carver or a painter or whatever it might be, and you've got tools and you learn how to use them because that's your trade, that's your craft. If you're a proposal professional who's involved in integrating dozens of documents into one big document, and that document is so critical that it could affect jobs at your company, in theory, right?
Right.
Why wouldn't you take the time to become the craftsman?
Good
right?
point.
Why let the tool master you? You should be the master of the tool. So that's kind of been my ethos. And I just try and convince people that, no, you're not too busy to do this. You need to find the time to do this. Anybody who is a project planning and scheduling professional, and I know many of them, they are all Microsoft project experts.
Right.
I mean experts. I mean, they know every single thing about Microsoft project and how to do it and how to integrate it with all kinds of other programs and stuff. You cannot, unfortunately, say the same about a lot of people whose job it is to do proposal integration. They are not masters of Word. Otherwise, Wordman wouldn't need to exist.
Right.
I mean, right? So,
yep.
And I'm trying bit by bit to sort of convert people into that. Look, there are some really cool things in here that Word can do, and Word can help you with this. So, learn how to use it, and then, you can be the master of Word.
Yeah, and I love that mindset shift, right? It's not just this thing that just all the content goes into. It is your part of your craft. This is the tool of your craft, and it really can make or break it. And if I think about, aside from the project plan and missing deadlines and all of that, but Word tends to be the thing that is painful at the end when we're in production. That and when you and I had our initial conversation, I loved what you said about that. Like, there's so much you can do to prevent that. And, I even need to learn Word better. So you'll be getting a call from me on that.
Okay. I'll look out for it.
So what is your personal pet peeve? Do you have a pet peeve about Word? Anything
gosh,
about it?
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's one of those things, right? So there are things in Word that are frustrating from my perspective, and I'm diving into some of the deeper parts of Word. But there are things like, it's like the engineers. So generally speaking, when you develop a product, you have marketing people who decide what the product should do, and then developers run off and do that.
Right.
And somewhere along the line, it's like, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea to do this? Yeah, great, we could do that. And they run off and they kind of like have a half go at it. So, for example, I'll give you for instance, there's a feature in Word called building blocks, which allow you to create blocks of text or text and graphics that you can put into the template and then, actually insert in the document. So I use them for all kinds of things. It could be, hey, I need a fold out. Well, rather than creating a fold out from scratch every single time, you can save that as a building block and just go insert that building block. Whammo, instant fold out. But the dialogue in Word that allows you to organize your building blocks is the worst thing in the world. It is absolutely atrocious. It is horrible. I mean, you can't expand it. You can't. Anyway, it's awful. So it's like, well, nice guys, nice try, guys. But if you just put that little extra bit of thought into that thing, gosh, that's just one of them. I joke when I do my workshops that, the 3 most horrible dialogues in Microsoft Word, that's one of them. The style manager is another. It's just the functionality is there, but not the thought behind how you might be using it.
Interesting.
So it's what, in a lot of today's world, people call UX design, right? The user experience.
Yep.
So sure, a programmer has said, I'm going to put all of these variables on this dialogue. Bingo, there you go. I have achieved I can put my check in the box to say, right, everything that can be tweaked, it can be tweaked. Have I done it in a logical, easy to use way? Heck no.
Yeah.
And I think that's where my frustration is with that. It's such a brilliant tool. If there was just these little tweaks to it that they could make and, make life a little bit easier for people. So there's quite a lot of them in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure things that so many of us that don't get that deep into Word would never even notice, but it's good to have people like you that know this kind of stuff.
But there are frustrations that regular people have. I mean, I did before we did this, I thought, well, I'm going to go and ask around the office and at SMA and say, what are the frustrating things that people have? And once you get beyond that, I mean, worry about the unreliability that it might go boom at the end of the day, right? That's all the worry. And I think that there's some frustrations with trying to do something in Word and thinking it can't do it, but actually it can, and you just don't know how.
Right.
Right. But then there's all those other things. And, it's like people said, well, why is it when I want to insert this, it's on the insert menu, but when I want to insert something else, it's on a different menu? I have to know where it is before I can insert it. And you go, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's true.
And things like, why does there have to be a blank line after a table? It's always worked that way. It's never changed, but why? So, I mean, one of the problems I think with this, it's like a lot of things, and Apple don't do this, but Microsoft try and always do this backward compatibility thing. So even if you've got the latest version of Microsoft Word, the 365 version or the 2019, whatever you want to call it, it will still open a document that was created in Word 1.
Yes.
Right? And so because of that, the way that it works internally, you can't change. You add new features in, but the way that, for example, heading numbering and the heading styles interact has to be exactly the same way as it's always worked.
Interesting. Let me ask you this. What are some techniques that you can share with the audience that will help them be able to use the tool better, that maybe they might not know?
Okay, so I do this little thing, and if anybody wants this, who's listened to this podcast and would like this, then get in touch with me. I'll send it to them. There's a little 2-page thing that I have called the 5 things you need to do to Word. There's some things on there that take 2 seconds to set up, but can actually save you time and actually help you write proposals, believe it or not.
Nice.
So, for example, one of them is when we paste something into Word, whether it be from another Word document, from within that document, it could be from PowerPoint or a website or whatever, everything comes in with all the formatting that it had.
Yep.
Right? So if I grab something that's in 20-point Comic Sans purple, it's going to be 20-point Comic Sans purple in my document. Gosh knows what that's going to do to it, but, I don't want that, right? So I want my document to follow whatever the RFP says it has to be. Sorry, it needs to be black, 12-point Times New Roman. So people know that they can paste in, and leave all the formatting behind, right? The paste special, unformatted text, plain text, whatever. But actually, if you go to the file options and bring up the options dialog, there are some settings there where you can tell Word by default how you want it to paste stuff in.
Oh.
So if you do it within the document, which is one of the options, you can keep the formatting because you're just moving stuff around.
Yeah.
If you want to come in from another document, you can say, no, bring it in plain text every time. If I want to come in from a different application, bring it in plain text. And one of the options there, which you get by default, is a little button that pops up, which is called the Paste Options button. So you'll notice this when you paste something in. At the end of the pasted selection, there's this little button, which if you click on it, gives you options, and then you can change your mind. So, for example, if I paste in a section of text from another document that includes a table, if I strip the formatting out, I'm going to lose the table grid, right? I'm just going to end up with all of the cell content with tabs in between.
Yeah, okay.
So I can actually, what I tell my people I'm training is bring all the text in, and then if you've got a table, bring that in separately, but you can paste it in such a way with the paste options that you can leave the text formatting behind, but bring in the table grid, if you like. So then, of course, you can apply your table style, your text styles, and all is good and safe.
So that could save a lot. Yeah, I could see that saving a lot of time too, because I'm a pretty quick copy paste, Control C, Control V. But if I have to paste special, you gotta. I mean, it's like seconds, but I like to be quick, right?
Sure.
I could still do that if I change that option out. I don't have to do the paste special every time I'm pasting in.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
There's other things as well. So we can always tell when we get text in from somebody that learned to type on a typewriter, right?
Double space between.
There we are. Here's the 2 spaces after a period. So, and we don't need that with the sort of proportionally spaced fonts that we have these days. And in any government proposal response, we're looking for space all the time. So we don't want that. So, of course, a lot of the time we do our, search and replace for 2 spaces, replace with 1, and keep going and get more results. But actually what you can do is in the options, you can go into the proofing options and change the grammar settings. So it can show you put a little red squiggly underline where you've got 2 spaces after a period.
Really?
It'll show you, for example, where if you're an Oxford comma user or not,
right?
might have gone a little bit crazy and put in too many commas.
Right.
It'll show you where, you've got punctuation within quotes. So you end a sentence with a quote, it's going to be period, quote, not quote, period, things like that. So, and there's things like you can say, show me passive voice, all those kind of things. And it'll underline everything for you and say, you really want to put that in your proposal?
Interesting.
So that's one of the other options you can do. Yeah, and there's all kinds of little, so there's a handful of little tweaks that you can do. I call it stopping word helping in some respects, because there's things like auto formatting where we've all done this, right? We type 1 period tab and Word goes, aha, you want a numbered list, don't you? And it indents the 1 and then the next line after that is the list, and you go, well, yes, but actually I want to use this wonderful style I've set up for numbered lists in my template, which is going to make them look really nice and be formatted consistent with the RFP and all that kind of thing. So you can actually tell Word to stop doing that.
Interesting.
Yeah, don't try and help me. Thank you very much. I know what I'm doing. So they're just little things you can do, and they don't literally take more than a few minutes to set up, and it will help you.
And is that per, when you change all of those, is it universal to any document then that you work in, or is it just per document?
So, yeah, that's a good point. Most of the changes that you make in the Word options are applicable to your instance of Word on that computer. Okay. So basically it applies to any document. So regardless of what I'm working in, even if I'm like right now, I'm looking at the notes I wrote for this podcast, and because I wrote it in sort of casual English with abbreviated forms and things, it's red underlined them and said, no, it should be that is, not that. Things like that. So I can ignore it if I'm writing in casual style.
Yeah. And
the other thing to bear in mind is that most people, if they're using Outlook for email, how do you think Outlook does spell checking? Oh, wait, it's using Word.
Yeah.
So those settings that you do in Word will also help you write decent emails as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. I don't think that I knew that you could go in and kind of some of the stuff that you're saying, or I knew that it was there, but the applicability of it too, sometimes you just have to get creative with it and do things that are going to help you, because that also takes a long time. That proofreading at the end, peer review, whatever you call it, that takes a lot of time, and anything that we can do to help ourselves, and why not have the tool help us better, right? So
yeah, I work with, I do all the internal proposals at SMA that go out to our clients, all the custom ones at least. Often I'll get input in from some of our consultants, and like a lot of people, they find it hard to write an active voice. People don't do it naturally. I mean, I'm an engineer by degree, and certainly I don't think I ever wrote an active voice as an engineer. Everything's passive voice, future tense, third person, right?
That's true.
And then I come along and you hit the world of proposals. At least the SMA way is active voice, first person, present tense. And you try and write that way because it gives you a better punchy kind of positive vibe to your text, right? Oh, and by the way, it also takes up less space, right? So if you're in a page limited proposal, writing active voice will actually save you space. So that's great. But it doesn't come naturally. So having Word help you by underlining, hey, this is a passive sentence. Try writing it active. And from what I have read, about future versions of Word, I'm on the sort of inside track for some of these things.
Nice.
They'll actually be able to right click and it'll just rewrite it for you.
Oh, that would
I know. So that's going to be both good and bad.
Yes,
Yeah, because it might not write it the way we want it to be written. But yeah, so rather than just sort of saying, hey, this could be written easier, it's sort of, it can actually help. So right now I have mine set up for clarity and conciseness, which is a great thing for a proposal, right?
Right.
So I use the word subsequently and it underlined it, underlined it. And I right click on that and it says, well, you could have used a simpler word like after, later, or then.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's a great tool.
Yeah. And people write proposals, in my experience, in a way that the bigger the word, the more convincing it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And it's just the opposite.
Kincaid level of about 20, because only old people could read it. So we're trying to write it simpler.
Yeah. I mean, we consume information simpler, right? We need it simple to consume. Yeah. And I also find that, especially the more technical the person is writing, the more technical of an expert they are, they really use a lot of big words like that. So I really love that.
And it saves space, right? So, later is much shorter than subsequently.
Yeah.
We're trying to make it easy for evaluators to go through and say,
gives you
does this particular bidder know what the heck they're talking about? Are they presenting me with a comprehensive, concise, convincing statement to that effect? And therefore, do I believe they're a low risk?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's really what at the end of the day we're looking at. I mean, I'm convinced that a lot of procurements, the customer is looking for the lowest risk.
Yes.
So, if you start putting in complicated words, to my mind, it seems like you really don't know what you're talking about and you're waffling.
Yeah, and it just makes it harder to wade through that and get to the meat of what you're trying to say, in my opinion. So that's good. I love that. So let me ask you this. Is there one particular function of Word that really changed your life?
I think Word changed my life, really. I was thinking about this when you asked me this question earlier, and I thought, well, I had been, I'll show my age here, WordStar user, then a WordPerfect user, and then a Word user. And one of the great things that Word has is this thing that's common to all of the Office apps, which is the ability to write macros.
Mm-hmm.
And, very simple, you can record a macro that does a million things. And then if you have some appreciation of Visual Basic, you can go in and edit that macro and say, oh, that's how Word did that. Okay. Maybe I could write a macro to do this. And then if you're like me, an engineer nerd, who learned Visual Basic, then you can go, okay, now I think I understand how this Word document is constructed from a programmer's point of view. So I can pretty much do anything I want with it. And so this idea of opening up the hood and literally looking at the engine and seeing where the spark plugs are connected, in a motoring kind of context, but the ability to I'm not talking about macros now, this is full on Visual Basic for applications programming, being able to write stuff and says, I can manipulate this document, or I can put a custom ribbon tab with one click on it and it'll do this, rather than me having to do, 30 clicks or whatever. And I went out for a while as an independent proposal consultant, and I came across real life scenarios that I felt, a macro would help. So one of them, for example, was, people say, so let's say, for example, I was working on a virtual team, had people all over the place, and how am I going to get red team comments back from a virtual team? Okay, so I get the document and I lock it to only allow comments. Pretty straightforward. I've only got documents, doesn't take a few minutes. Okay, send them out, goes out in the red team. Then I get back 6 documents for each document, because I've sent them to 6 red team reviewers with all their comments in. And now I've got to combine all of those documents together. Okay, so you can see sitting there going, okay, now I combine 1 and 2. Now I combine that with 3. Then I combine it with, was it 4 or did I do 3? Or am I on 5 now? So it got very frustrating. So in the end, I just wrote a simple little Word thing using the programming that says, open up each of these documents and glue them together, please.
Really? Like you can do that?
Sure.
Oh, wow.
It's really straightforward, to me at least.
Right.
Once you understand how the object model works in Word, and that's actually one of the nice things, there's a hidden benefit from that. It's not just the ability to write little programs that can help situations like that. And they're on my website, by the way. But it's also, you understand then how Word actually works.
Oh, interesting.
So one of the biggest things that I hear a lot of during production is, oh my God, the last minute, all my level 3 headings jump to the middle of the page.
Oh, seriously, I know. And it just randomly does that stuff all the time.
Randomly does it. What the heck happened? Well, let's not say what happened, but how do we stop it doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the biggest problems I understood by understanding how Word works under the hood, how it works, is you realize that the heading numbering and the headings styles are totally different. They're totally disconnected. And there's actually a reference from one to the other. So when you look into the numbering gallery, it sort of says, here's my numbering, 1, 1.1, 1.1, etc. And for the ones, oh, by the way, that's linked to heading 1. Okay. If you go to the heading 1 style, there's nothing that says, oh, by the way, I'm using the numbering gallery.
Ah.
So you realize now there's actually a unidirectional link between them.
Okay.
So if I'm setting the indents, and this is where these blowing up heading things normally come from, is people realize at the last minute that, oh, I didn't have a big enough tab between the number and the text.
Oh.
So I've got the number and now I've got a big gap because it's gone on to the next tab in the tab style.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so, okay, I'll just go and change that on the ruler visually.
Right.
Bad idea. Because here's what happens.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, well, there you go. People don't realize that. They don't see, well, why shouldn't I be able to do that? Well, you're right. Why shouldn't you be able to do that? Well, here's why. Because when you set up the numbering, you're putting the tab stops in the numbering, and it actually flows them down into the style. Okay, so then you look at the style and you go, oh, yeah, look, here we are. It's a half-inch hanging indent. Perfect. You then go and change that on the ruler or in the style, you modify the style, whatever. Problem is that does not flow back to the numbering.
Got it.
So then now you've got two things that are in tension.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. One of the things that I tell people all the time in the process, the RFP process, we do a lot of strategy and process refinement and things. Is, where are the bottlenecks? Like, start making a list of all the bottlenecks. And I feel like the same thing with Word. Like, start making a list of all of the areas in Word that are not working for you, because it sounds to me in talking to you that there is a solution to probably all of those. It's just a matter of knowing how to fix them, right?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And one of the worst things that I think that people do, and I've seen this a lot of places, is not getting the production people involved with the planning at the beginning. Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've seen even some salespeople go, oh, yeah, we'll put this team into this client and we'll put the proposal manager in first, and then we'll bring in volume leads and the writers, and then it's almost an afterthought. Oh, and the production person. Well, no, because I was looking at an RFP yesterday, actually, from one of those, 3-letter agencies in the government. And it said it will be on CD-ROMs, and they want hard copies and stuff like that. Well, that all takes time to do.
Right.
So are you as a proposal manager sufficiently au fait with the production systems that you know exactly how long that's going to take? No, of course you're not. You rely on your production manager. So you need to bring them involved at the beginning, part of the planning exercise, right? My wife always said to me, you can't negotiate with the Xerox printer. It can only print as fast as it can print.
It's very true.
It's very print true. Faster, damn it. It's not going to work. And for the reason for that is, again, bring the production people in early, because the first thing they're going to do is say, let me look at the RFP, let me look at Section L, let me create a proposal template or a master document, or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
This is for this proposal. And this is all the styles are correct, the headers and the footers are correct, the page size is correct. Yep. That's what everybody's going to use. If you wait until later people have already started doing stuff, and it's all going to be taken and dropped into that thing, and that just takes longer and creates potential problems and bottlenecks. So, it's like people that hand over all of their draft graphics at the last minute, and there's the box that says a miracle happens here, and then all the production people put you right on the top of their hit list. So there's a lot of bottlenecks that can happen. I think with the production part of it, with the actual getting the thing out the door, get your production people involved early on, let them work on the template, get that out to all of the people who are going to be contributing, because that's going to save time at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been great. Lots of really good, my head's spinning a little bit with thoughts around what I need to learn. I know that I don't know Word inside and out, certainly like you do, but there's a couple things here that I'm like, oh, I could definitely be better. And I don't do as much of that work anymore, right? I've got teams of people that do that, but it's also good to know. And, I always find it's good to know what we don't know, because there's always, again, kind of knowing that is an option, then you can go out and learn it from people like you.
The known unknowns, right? And the risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now if anybody wants to get in touch with you to learn more about Word, to get you to come in and train them or their teams, how do they get in touch with you?
So they can get hold of me at wordman@wordmanspeaks.com. That's pretty straightforward. I have my website, iamwordman.com, and there's a contact me on that.
Okay.
Or just find me on LinkedIn or on my Facebook page for Wordman. So all of those, it's I am Wordman.
I am Wordman. Plus, we'll have all the links.
I was channeling Deep Purple there for I am Iron Man, but I actually found somebody had Wordman.com, and I was really miffed that they had that. And it's a guy that does technical writing, and he's actually in Bangkok in Thailand.
Oh, interesting.
He's an American expat. But he had Wordman. I thought, okay, it makes sense. But, can I buy it? No. Okay. So I had to, the next best thing is I am Wordman.
That's better. So, I like it better.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, we'll have.
So, anybody get in touch. And there are some of those little add-ins for Word that do those kind of cool things on my website. And, but if you're interested in training or custom template design, stuff like that, get in touch.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much. And man, for you listeners, by the way, all of that information and his links will be in the show notes. So make sure you check on those. Dick, it's been wonderful having you. Appreciate you sharing your expertise. I know we could go on for another couple hours with all the fun stuff that actually longer than that, I'm sure. But now people can reach out to you. So thank you so much for being here as our guest.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Lisa.
Absolutely.
Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. You have been listening to the RFP Success Show. We'll see you back here again next week.
You have been listening to the RFP Success Show with RFP expert Lisa Reherik, author of the RFP Success book. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, make sure you click the subscribe button so you don't miss a show. And thanks for spending time with us today.